Welcome, everyone. You are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way with me, April Yee, on Transformation Talk Radio. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care. I'm here to support you in getting out of your own way. So what does getting in your own way look like? Well, how about letting other people define your value and worth, ignoring your body by not taking care of yourself, and people-pleasing? These are just a few ways I've gotten in my own way. In this show, I'll share new perspectives on self-care practices so you can discover options and choices for expanding what's possible for you and your life. In each episode, I have questions for you, and when you take the time to answer them, they'll help in building up your belief about yourself. I believe that when we get good with ourselves, we get good with our lives and the world. Get Out of Your Own Way starts now. Hi, everyone. You are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way on Transformation Talk Radio, episode 14. The concepts I talk about in each episode are things I wish I learned sooner to support myself and get out of my own way. So I hope these ideas are coming to you when you need them. So today we'll be talking about boundaries. And I know that boundaries have been talked about fairly often now. I mean, a lot more often than when I know that I needed them in the past. And so I think it's great that a lot of people are talking about them. We know more about what boundaries are and how to approach them. And I will be talking about them today as well, maybe in a way that is my own way of thinking about it and talking about it, and also the way that my life coach school talks about it. So instead of starting with a quote today, I'll just say that boundaries are what we do to take care of ourselves, what we have to take care of ourselves. And we want to have boundaries so that we can keep our relationships healthy. I think that maybe sometimes people mistake boundaries for like a way to, get what we want, but then deny other people things, or to put distance between a relationship. And sometimes that is true, but we want to have boundaries so that we can have healthy relationships with other people. So I'll just remind us that what a boundary is that a boundary defines us. So what is me, what is not me, where I end, where you begin, what is my responsibility, what is not my responsibility. And again, it's what we do to take care of ourselves. And a boundary has a consequence that we will do. So it's not like when I set a boundary, I tell you to do something. When I set a boundary, it's what I will do if you keep doing an action, and you have the freedom to do that action. As adults, we can do whatever we want, but it's my responsibility if I set a boundary to say like, hey, you can keep doing what you're doing, and I'm going to blank. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. So what a boundary is not a way to control or manipulate other people. A boundary is not an expectation of others, and a boundary is not a threat or an ultimatum. And why do we set boundaries? So like I mentioned before, setting boundaries helps us keep our relationships healthy. When we don't have boundaries, it creates a sense of disconnection and disempowerment. And then when we do have boundaries, we can also prevent resentment that can arise due to a lack of boundaries. And so some examples for language and situations where we might want to set boundaries. So like if someone smokes, so people are allowed to smoke cigarettes, but not in my house. So I can say, if you decide to smoke a cigarette in my house, then I will ask you to leave. But you can still smoke a cigarette. You can smoke a cigarette outside my house. A yelling example could be, people are allowed to yell, but you don't have to stay around when someone is yelling. So if someone is yelling in front of me, I can say, if you continue to yell, I'm going to leave the room until we can talk normally together. And an example, when maybe you have someone in your life who is chronically late, people are allowed to be late, but you don't have to wait for them. And so if I have someone in my life that is chronically late, a boundary that I can set is, if you're more than 15 minutes late today, I'm going to leave and we can reschedule. And what gets in the way of setting boundaries? There are four things to my knowledge that get in the way, that have gotten in the way for me. And that is one, manuals that we have for ourselves and others. And I've talked about manuals before. People pleasing gets in the way. That's the second thing. The third thing is a lack of self confidence or self approval. And I've also talked about that before as well. And the fourth thing is discomfort. So it can be very uncomfortable to set boundaries and communicate those boundaries with other people. And I'll be talking about each one of these a little bit more. So, how manuals get in the way of setting boundaries. Um, like I mentioned before, we have manuals that we create for other people and for ourselves. And these are sort of like expectations. And we think when our manuals are followed by other people, we can feel good and be happy. And because we have manuals, we may not set boundaries and expect others to just know what our boundaries are. So if I have a manual that says, oh, my friend should know not to call me after 8 p.m. or, not to call me after midnight or something like that. Then if my friend does call me after midnight, I might get upset, but I never told them that they are not allowed to call me after midnight. So um, I might not communicate that manual instruction if that's something that I just expect them to know. Um, and so I gave some manual examples before, but I'll just repeat some again. So some manual examples are: she should call me back when I call her. He should remember my birthday. She should be kind and understand when I am frustrated. He should support me. She should listen to me for as long as I listen to her. He should know I'm working as hard as I can. I should make more money. I should have a better work-life balance. I should just want to exercise and feel good about it. And we can tell that usually manual instructions have the word should in them. And so, again, if we have manual instructions for ourselves, like maybe I shouldn't get mad if my mother in law comes over without calling first, then I'll probably keep letting my mother in law come over without calling, and I'll secretly be mad. But then if I think that I shouldn't be, then I won't even think that I need to communicate that to my mother in law. And so my boundaries would keep being crossed in that way. And, a boundary for that is if you keep coming over without calling, I'm just going to lock the door, or I'm not going to answer the door. Um, and I'll talk about how we want to stay connected in a little bit, but we do want to stay connected in that, in that example, I can say, we really like it when you come over. I just like knowing ahead of time when you will be coming over. So please call before you come over. And that's a request. And, if she doesn't call before she comes over the next time, then I can say, I had requested that you call before you come over. And if you don't call before you come over, the next time I'm going to lock the door, or I'm not going to open the door. And again, we can say, we do like it when you come over. We just like to have you call first. So that's staying connected, even while setting a boundary. So what gets in the way in terms of people pleasing? So I think I've also talked about this before too. People pleasing, I say, is lying to others and to ourselves, because we might want to say no, but we actually say yes. And so if the truth is no and we say yes, then we're lying. Um, People pleasing is trying to get people to like you by doing what you think they want. People pleasing is disregarding what you really want. People pleasing is ignoring yourself so that you don't disappoint other people. it actually is disappointing yourself so you don't disappoint other people. And people pleasing can create resentment towards others and towards ourselves when we engage in people pleasing, because we might feel annoyed and frustrated. It's like, why do I keep saying yes to these things? And then I might feel resentment to the people who ask, because I'm just like, why do they have to keep asking me? And of course, they can keep asking me. But if I don't say no, then they're going to maybe think like, oh, she wants to say yes, or she says yes. So I'm going to keep asking. And then I might feel resentful about myself, like, why can't I say no? So when we're focused on people pleasing, we have an inordinate amount of focus on other people's thoughts about ourselves. So we are seeking approval. We might be avoiding guilt or avoiding disappointing others when we people please. And we worry about the relationship. So we might think, oh, I need to say yes. Otherwise, I'm going to lose this relationship. I'm going to damage the relationship, or someone will get angry with me. And there's also a need to control when we people please. So it's like a need to control what other people think about us. If we're unwilling to let others think what they want about us, then we will try to control what they think about us. And we also might not know how to let other people be wrong about us. So if someone asks me to like bake cookies for their kids' bake sale and I say no, then they can think like, oh, well, you're being selfish with your time. And I can let them think that I'm being selfish with my time, but I know that I'm just setting a boundary. And the truth is, I don't want to bake cookies for someone's kids' bake sale. And that's telling the truth. And it's I don't know if it would be, I would call it being selfish with my time, but it's prioritizing my time for what I value. I might value spending that time doing something else for some other person who asked me to do something that I do value more. And it doesn't mean that I don't like the friend and her kid. And that's why I don't want to bake cookies for them. But it's just that I'm valuing something more than baking cookies for a bake sale. And so a lack of self-confidence and self-approval gets in the way of setting boundaries, because when we're focused on other people's approval, we're not seeking our own approval. And so we might also be judging other people when they set boundaries with us. So we fear that they will judge us when we set boundaries with them. And again, we might fear damaging or losing relationships with others. So we weaken our relationship with ourselves by not telling the truth to ourselves or to other people. And we also start to distrust ourselves and know what's best for us when we don't have our when we don't have self-confidence or our own self-approval. And so when we do that, we think like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe I'm just wrong about feeling this way. So I'm just going to say yes to this person. But when we do have our own self-approval and we're not looking for others' approval, we can tell ourselves the truth about how we're feeling. And then we can have the courage to tell someone else the truth about how we're feeling. And the last thing that gets in the way of setting boundaries is discomfort. So setting boundaries can be very uncomfortable. When we enforce the consequences of our boundaries, that can be even more uncomfortable than just communicating our boundaries. And the way that we can overcome the discomfort is to let it be hard and to continuing practicing to set our boundaries, communicate the boundaries, and to maintain the consequences of the boundaries. And just to know that that will feel uncomfortable at first. And it does get less uncomfortable the more we practice. So ways to practice setting boundaries. We can practice setting boundaries with friends and people that we do trust. So it can be a role play, or it can be a real boundary that we want to set. And we trust this person to be able to hear us, and hold that boundary with us. So we can tell ourselves the truth first, and then we can tell our truth to others. And then we can also acknowledge our feelings. We can acknowledge our feelings, the feelings of others. When we do start setting boundaries, someone else may be disappointed that we're not saying yes or that we're not being accessible or available to them like we used to be. And that's going to be hard for them. And it's probably going to be hard for us to know that it's hard for them. Um, and knowing the language that we can use is also really helpful in setting boundaries. And I'll be sharing some examples about that. And how we can maintain our boundaries. We need to first decide what our boundaries are. And this might include some trial and error at first to learn what we're okay with and not okay with. Because I think once our boundaries are crossed, then we know, oh, that was not okay. But then we didn't know that ahead of time. So it's almost like for some things, our boundaries have to be crossed first for us to know that that was a boundary. And so boundaries without consequences are not boundaries. And we have to decide if we're willing to enforce the consequence before we set the boundary. And we need to follow through on the consequence. So again, the consequence is the thing that I will do if there's a boundary violation by someone else. So some language to practice setting boundaries. To stay connected, we can say, I love or appreciate or value you or our friendship, our relationship, and I do not want to do that. We can acknowledge feelings. I understand that you're upset that I won't do that for you. I'm sorry you feel that way. How else can I help? And then making a request. I appreciate the bedroom floor being clean. Would you be open to picking up your clothes off the floor? And again, we can't control what other people do. We can have consequences. We can say, if you leave your clothes on the bedroom floor, I'm not going to pick them up. And we're just going to have a messy bedroom until you're ready to pick up your clothes. And there are some scenarios that we can share, and I kind of talked about a few of these earlier. So when someone is chronically late, we can set a boundary that says, hey, I really like spending time with you and I want to respect my time. So if you're more than 20 minutes late in the future, I'm just going to leave and we can reschedule. Another example is when a housemate uses your things without asking. We can say, I really appreciate some of the things you do around the house, and I don't appreciate when you use my things without asking me. Would you be willing to ask me in the future? And if not, I'm just going to lock up the things that I don't want you to use. When cleanliness is an issue, we can say, and this might be around leaving dirty dishes in the sink for days, or when it's someone's turn to clean the bathroom and they don't clean it. We can communicate and say, hey, I really appreciate the things that you do around the house. And I like having a clean sink, kitchen sink, or a clean bathroom. It was your turn to wash the dishes or clean the bathroom, and I noticed that you didn't do it. Can you please, keep your commitment to cleaning the areas that are your responsibility during your weeks? And if you don't, we're just going to have a dirty, or I'm going to leave this dishes in the sink until you clean them, or the bathroom will just be dirty until you clean them. The other thing that I haven't talked about is that if I value a clean kitchen sink and a clean bathroom, and maybe this other person doesn't value it the same way that I do, then I might want to be the one that cleans because it affects me if it's not clean, and it doesn't affect the other person as much if it's not clean. So I think Byron Katie talks about this. It's like, if you like people not throwing their socks on the floor, then you get to pick them up. And because that is something that makes me more comfortable and feel better. But the person who's doing it might not do that. And when we actually when they can see that we are happy with clean spaces, the other person might be more willing to keep the spaces clean along with us. So those are just some examples. So the progression when we set boundaries, the first thing we have to do is knowing what our boundaries are. The second thing is finding the strength to set boundaries for ourselves. And then we set the boundaries. So we are very clear about what our boundaries are. And then we communicate those boundaries to other people. And that part, the communicating part, is probably the hardest part. And along with the enforcing and maintaining boundaries, which is, enforcing the consequence that we say, those two things are the hardest because they involve other people, and we might have to deal with or manage their emotions along with our emotions. And I think what's important is to emphasize that, I'm saying these things because I want to stay in relationship with you in a healthy way instead of feeling angry or resentful towards you if I don't set these boundaries. And the outcome of maintaining boundaries is that eventually we will feel less guilt about setting boundaries. And we get to respect other people's boundaries too. And we say no so that when we do say yes, we really do mean yes. And by setting boundaries, we can actually feel more connected with ourselves and our lives because we're not running around doing things that we think we need to do for other people because we didn't set boundaries, or we're not letting other people do things in our lives that we actually don't like because we weren't willing to set boundaries. And when we do, we get to feel more connected and I think trusting of ourselves, that we know that we can take care of ourselves, even in challenging situations. And so my questions for you are, what boundary setting practices will you explore to incorporate into your life? What is something I talked about today that you might like to explore or learn more about? And what is one thing around boundaries that you're committed to doing for yourself? And I love talking about boundaries because I really needed them in the past, and I didn't know that I could even have boundaries for myself or communicate boundaries for myself. So I hope some of this information was helpful. It might be different than maybe how you've thought about or considered or heard about boundaries talked about before. So I'd love to hear any comments or thoughts you have about boundaries that you want to set for yourself or that you want to communicate with other people. So I'm so glad you joined me for this episode of Get Out of Your Own Way. To go even deeper, join me for Self-Care Sundays, monthly drop-in sessions, and you can find out more about that at thehealingmodalities.com. You can also sign up for my weekly Self-Care Seeds newsletter at the website. And join me again for Get Out of Your Own Way every other Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central, and 3:30 p.m. Pacific. Next time on Get Out of Your Own Way, I'll be doing something a little bit different. I'll be interviewing someone about what they've done to get in their own way and how they've learned to get out of their own way and what their journey and experience has been. And, I think some of the people that I'm going to interview in the next few episodes, they might have things that resonate for you, and their experiences might be educational or something that you can also learn from. So until then, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. You have been listening to Get Out of Your Own Way. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care with me, April Yee. Tune in every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. In each episode, I present new questions that support you in building up your beliefs about yourself. To connect with me or for more information, you can email me at thehealingmodalities@gmail.com or visit my website, thehealingmodalities.com. See you soon.